Oh, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. It is September 7th, 2024, and we have returning guest, Caro Cloutier.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Yay!
How you doing?
We're doing great today. I got my little girl here, my little pup, my little joy, who
Nice.
brings me joy.
Yeah.
So
So
she's right next to me.
that is awesome. Welcome.
Thank you. How are
Thank
you doing today?
Good, good. Yeah, it's an early morning. Had a pretty late night, but we're good.
Okay, I appreciate you inviting me on at such an early time.
Yep. The earlier, the better.
Well, today I wanted to talk a little bit about intergenerational trauma and healing, and that might sound really not very easy to understand or have a clear picture what that is. And so I thought I would talk a little bit about that. Would that be okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Because I think, like it's unraveling this big title, intergenerational trauma and healing. And it's simply like if you ever wondered what you're carrying, sometimes we can feel it physically in our bodies, and sometimes we can feel it like a constant emotion that keeps coming back over and over again, and you can't release it or you can't shake it off.
Hmm.
Or it's these thoughts that you 1 minute you're fine, and then these thoughts just keep looping,
Hmm.
and all of that baggage that we carry, it doesn't necessarily have to be yours, and we just assume it's ours. Well, it's in my body, so it's mine. And what if those heavy feelings, the self sabotage patterns, or the fears, the anxiety, actually isn't even yours? It's been passed down through family, like an invisible inheritance. Sometimes I talk about that with clients, what legacy do you want to pass down to your children, to your loved ones, to your friends?
Hmm. So, what is intergenerational trauma? I think I pretty much know. I think I did a bit of a study, a bit of a course on it. But what is intergenerational trauma for our listeners?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would love to hear from you what words come up when you hear that, just so that the listeners um, might gain from just even asking the question, what they might think this is intergenerational trauma. What words come up for you, Shauna, when you hear that?
I think from what I know, it's when there's a lot of trauma and history that have happened within cultures. And then it can almost be like, and it is quite a dark, heavy subject. So it's with when that culture has abuse and trauma within, and then it's like the culture takes it out on itself. But anyways, what is intergenerational trauma, Kara?
You got it right there. It's all of that. It's how the pains, the wounds, and the sufferings of the past, of our ancestors. So it could be like of my grandmother and my grandfather are living inside of me. Whether it's on my mom's side or my dad's side, it's how those show up. You might have had family members say, "Oh, you're just like your grandmother," or "You're just like Aunt Betty," or something like that. And it's like, well, or sometimes they'll name their children from a grandmother or a great ancestor, and it's like, well, how much are you carrying from that person? And so that's what the intergenerational trauma is how it is passed down. It could be energetically, it could be emotionally, it could be mentally, it could be spiritually. And when say that, I mean we have these different bodies. I often use the analogy of the little Russian dolls. Do you know those little Russian dolls that fit into one another? Well,
Hmm.
the smallest one on the inside would be like the physical body, and then the next one would be the mental body. And then the next body above that would be the emotional body. And the reason why they fit into one another is because the outside one will affect all the ones that are on the inside. So the next doll after that will be like the spiritual body, the dream body, what we access in the dream, or when we're doing um, plant medicines, or when we're doing art or dancing, any kind of an ecstatic kind of altered situation that we get into. It could be very subtle, but we still access it.
Mhm.
And then there's the energy body, the outside body, which covers energy, and like every energy is everywhere. And it's the common thing that we all share with every living being. So that's the one that, is so exciting to work on, because then you're affecting all the other ones on the inside. So if you're going to choose where to put your time and energy and effort, why not choose where you're going to get the greatest impact? So that's where some of these modalities come in.
Yeah. So like I guess how could you work through it? And then what about like if people, because this is quite a big topic, so it's also like what if people can't really, I don't know, maybe acknowledge it or look at it or be consciously aware of it, it's like where do people start?
Great question. And
Mhm.
that's the thing, is that you don't have to be aware of it to know that it's in your body. You don't have to have it in your mind, in your conscious awareness, in your cognitive brain, like the words are actually in your brain. You don't have to have that for you to experience it in your body. And that's the thing, is that it's like this silent destroyer, it's like this silent mystery that keeps us so stuck that we start believing it's true. Like the stuckness that lives in your world, in your life, in your body, that keeps you from moving forward, all of that, that you keep self-judging and self-sabotaging.
Mhm.
Well, what if it's actually doesn't even belong to you? What if it's actually from the past that's still coursing in your body, and you could be the one to release it?
So that's where we're kind of moving because like the next question I think is like how do we heal or how do we, deal with this and what tools can we use? And like you had just said, asking the question, who does this belong to? Which is an access consciousness tool. If anyone needs to look it up, can go to www.accessconsciousness.com. But these tools are great. So you were saying a good tool is who does this belong to?
Yeah. And people, I find it's a kind of a whole different way of thinking, a whole new paradigm shift to ask questions without expecting the answer.
Yeah.
So when we say, who does it belong to? Or what I like to use is this mine? Because I actually don't want to know who. I just want to know, is it mine? Because what happens is when I do the who, I'm in the other person's world and I just want to be with me. And if I ask, is this mine? And it feels heavy, I can release that. And if I have no idea if it's heavy or anything, I don't even need to know. I can just say, is this mine? And then when I ask the question, I'm just trying to point to the energy. I'm just trying to get more awareness of the energy. It's like, you know, when you're doing Google Maps and you're trying to help somebody find a place and you pin it. Well, when you ask, is this mine? You're just pinning it. Okay, this energy, what is it? Like, is it mine? Is it mine? And then you can say, return to sender with consciousness attached. I just do return to sender with consciousness, and it works. And to tell you the truth, my tool is I use it 10 times. And somewhere between that time, I'm going to start yawning and I'm going to release something. So it's a great tool.
I find that like even if you just play around with it, it could take people a while to use the tool, but even if like any thought, feeling, emotion or anything because it's so quick. You could be walking along in your day and all of a sudden if you just ask who does this belong to, everything can just lighten up and go away. But sometimes if it's staying there still, you could just be very present and I guess presently aggressive to use the tool, who does this belong to? And then notice like what changes happen, or if you're choosing to hold on to this still, um, or still another questions like, who does this belong to? Is this mine? Is this the earth, somebody else's, or something else? So that's like
Mm.
ways to, more questions to ask. But yeah.
Those are great questions for sure.
Hmm.
And I think that's the thing is that people just don't really know. They haven't they've either like have a general idea of this information, but they don't really know, they haven't used it, or there isn't someone kind of holding their hand through it. And I do have like a downloadable that's the signs and symptoms of intergenerational trauma that I'll talk a little bit about in a little bit. But I just want to dive into a little bit more about the intergenerational trauma and why you might want to be doing something about it.
Okay,
Because it helps you to release not only inherited emotional wounds, it helps you to rewrite your story.
great.
Imagine that you can actually shift your story. You can shift not only the past by releasing it, but you can actually shift your future because you don't have to carry it forward.
Hmm.
And it sounds like, well, how could that be possible? But we are at a point in time where we have so many tools at our disposition, so many tools to use and to work with. It's fabulous. And I actually do this kind of work. I'm a psychotherapist by trade. I'm a registered psychotherapist in the province of Ontario in Canada. And I have shamanic tools. I've been training in shamanic tools for 20 years. And I love the Access tools, the Access consciousness bars, facelift, body process, and all kinds of tools. I also have a great tool called the Emotion Code. And it's so fascinating how much we clear things. We've been clearing things from like 10 generations past. When I was in my training, I was working with a colleague, and he released an trapped emotion in my left breast that wasn't mine, that was my grandmother's, 7 generations past. And we both looked at each other and we went, whoa. We got that, what we cleared will have a future impact on me and my body. And I was just, I have cases where I work with moms and they're concerned about the trauma they've experienced and how they've passed it down to their children. They're concerned about the stress that they were experiencing when they were pregnant with their child and how it's impacted their child when they were pregnant and then what happened afterwards. Like, is that my child still carrying all that stress, all the wounds that I had?
Most likely.
With right? And so they're concerned about that, and they're bringing that forward to me when we're working together, and then we get to clear not only what is going on for that person, the mom,
Hmm.
but we get to clear as well what's happening, what has happened to her when she was pregnant,
Wow.
which ripples out to her family.
Hmm.
So it's pretty powerful. And I mean, who doesn't want to rewrite their story? Like, who doesn't have like one piece of their story they're ready to rewrite?
Yeah.
And some of the work I do is called a soul retrieval. And in that soul retrieval, it's super cool and super powerful. Um, we're actually going to help find a soul piece that got fractured, and we're there to bring that soul piece back
Yeah.
so that the soul can be more complete and whole.
Yeah.
And so what happens in that modality, in that piece of work, is the person gets to rewrite the contract that they made due to a wound, due to a trauma.
Hmm.
Whatever that contract is that they are unaware of, I get to go into the unconscious and source it out and bring it up for them and ask them, do you want to keep this contract? And I've never had anyone say yes. They all said no. And I said, what do you want to change it to? And they get to choose. And then sometimes we tweak it. And then I go back down into the unconscious and I help that get rewritten. And then we go find that soul piece. And
That's
then we negotiate. If that soul piece is like, no, I'm not coming back. It's way too intense. They're not going to take care of me. They're not going to actually do the care that's required. Then we negotiate with the person, okay, well, this is what the soul piece requires to come back. What are you willing to do that? And then when there is a yes on both sides, then the soul piece gets to come back. So there is a rewriting happening there.
mhm,
And then you get to change your future outcome. You get to change who you are in that moment, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, your stories you keep telling you get to change that. I find that fascinating and super powerful.
that's really cool.
Yeah. And so it's all about healing, and it's about transforming not only you, but your entire lineage, because you can go back and clear, and you can go forward into the future to clear if
Hmm.
you're ready to be present and choose to clear what you're carrying today.
Hmm. That's really cool.
Yeah. And so we get to unlock these unknowns that are part of the intergenerational healing. Like, even if you don't know it, you don't need to know it.
Yeah, I think everybody could use a session.
Right? I know that for me, it's been very powerful for me personally in unlocking some of my own, my own dynamics and my own patterns that I've grown up with my sisters especially and my parents, and how I'm still living some of those patterns today. I had this thing happen to me yesterday where I was taking a friend, it was her birthday. I was taking her out of the city to an art gallery, McMichael Art Gallery, which is a very cool gallery about 45 minutes, an hour north of Toronto, where I'm from.
Hmm.
And I had it all lined up that I was going to bring my dog with me, and she was going to get some pet care there in that area, so that if anything happened, I was really close by. And then the morning of, the person bailed on me.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh my God, I was stressed out. So I end up going to the local pet park, where we have a little community, and she has her friends there. And I was just saying, okay, I'm like a little stressed out about this. And I was talking with someone. She's like, yeah, she'll be okay for 6 hours. I'm like, okay, maybe I can make it 5 hours. And I'm like trying to get comfortable with this idea. And I was sharing it with another dog owner, and next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, I spoke to my partner, and why don't you just bring her over?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, thank you. My goodness. Oh, I love you." So she got to, hang out with a friend of hers at a house, and she's 2 years old, so she's still a pup, and we're still kind of working through some of these things. And I realized, you know what? I'm not the best at creating community. And that is totally from what I've learned with my family. Talk and pot, all that. And it's like this was like a bit of an awakening for me about what could be possible for me in having more ease and having community around me, so I can swap with pet owners and have more ease there.
Yeah, so the Puck and Pod is the clearing statement. If you guys want to check it out, it's www.theclearingstatement.com. Basically, what it does is it clears all the energy that brings up, like that is brought up. But you did mention you had a resource to share.
I
Like,
do.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so if you want to know more about this works, and even how the work how I work with clearing this work, you can go to my website, www.toronto, Toronto, wellness, Wellness group, group.com.
Nice.
And at the very first page, there's a place where you can access this signs and symptoms of intergenerational trauma.
Wow.
And you can also sign up for a 20-minute consultation if you have any questions. I'm happy to chat with you about how I work. I do this long distance. I have clients in Europe and in the States and in not in Mexico yet, but a bit everywhere. So this can be done online, and it's all because we're releasing energies, which is
So
fabulous.
can you talk a bit about the signs and symptoms?
Yeah, so actually I'm going to keep that as the mystery actually. If people actually want more to come and like,
Way to
re
leave us hanging on.
well, it's
Now I'm
not
gonna
just
go to
that.
your website.
Yay! And it's not just that, but it's a willingness to actually not just be passive about it, but to choose. And that choice is actually powerful because it's you choosing for you and you making that step for you. I always find that that's very powerful when people are making that courageous step to make contact.
Well, I mean, so many people like kind of, yeah, like you said, it is like they choose not to or they don't make that step. And so I think that's a great, way to connect with people because connection is something that is kind of fading away, you know, on
Mm.
nowadays.
That's a really good point, Shauna. I was reflecting on my weekend and I had such a lovely weekend this weekend. And it was because I spent all day, I went hiking, which I just love. And then I spent the rest of the day with my closest friend. And then yesterday I spent the rest of the day with my other closest friend. And I feel so nourished. And I forget how much that contributes to me and my body and my heart to be with the people I love,
Yeah.
the chosen people that I love.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a great way to connect with people and that like it sounds like you're doing really good work with people because like, to change things and to help people move through something that can be, you know, a very difficult thing to look at. I think the intergenerational trauma healing is huge, especially on the Indigenous aspect. There's a lot of communities that still deal with this, especially with the history of Canada. But also, you had mentioned parenting and mothers actually bringing that up. I think that's huge as well because I'm grateful for you bringing up this topic and subject and being a resource for people and being that space for people if they choose to heal and take the steps, ask the questions. And the access tools are a huge modality. Like they sound very simple, but they're so pragmatic and they make a change. So I'm really grateful that you do your work, the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And, I think the thing that I also have been reflecting on what is different for me with other people, other healers. I mean, we just here in Canada, we just honored on September 30th
Yeah.
the in missing and Indigenous children.
It was
And
National Truth and Reconciliation Day, September 30th,
thank you.
2024, and it happens every year, September 30th, National Truth and Reconciliation.
Thank you. And one of my friends who is an Indigenous person and an Indigenous healer had a sacred fire, and the week before she invited me to another event where I was just immersed into indigeneity. And I think the thing that for me is so important for me is working from an embodied place, working from the body, not just from concepts in the head and not just following the thoughts, because our thoughts are very limited and we have access to our thoughts. Maybe our thoughts are just about 10% of who we are. 90% is unconscious, it's unknown to us, yet it's all in the body. So we can access that. And I do that again with all these modalities. And the experience is that it's more of an embodied healing. It's more of an embodied freedom that people get, not just from clearing the mind, but you actually walk in a different way in your body. And then you can walk in a different way with the earth. And then you can walk in a different way with all the peoples that you live with in your history, in your everyday, including the animals, including the plants, including the everything.
That's awesome.
That's my final pitch.
Well, well, yeah, and I think, like I said, I I think it's a very huge topic that not many people talk about and not many people look at, because the only time that came up for me was in college,
Mm.
and it was great to be aware about it. But it's actually since 2015, you are probably the only person that has brought it up, and it is now 2024. So, I'm grateful for you joining this space in this podcast episode and choosing a topic that isn't necessarily light, but also holding a space right here, right now. But then also, having that space and invitation for people who would like to heal. And yeah, so we can put your website on this podcast episode. So
Great.
it is
Wellnessgroup.com.
www.torontowellnessgroup.com.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, so we can put that on this podcast episode, and I am so grateful for you.
Oh, thanks, Shauna. I'm really grateful for you creating this space that we can talk about these things that many people don't want to talk about or don't know how to talk about, don't know even how to start a conversation about it. So thank you for creating the space for us to do this today.
Yeah.
And all your podcasts ways that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Over 100 plus. I'm excited for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, yeah, let's keep in touch. And you are always welcome to come back and talk about any topic. And is it Monday?
It's Monday.
Okay, well, happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah, Monday. Blessings to everybody. Woohoo! Let's start this week off in a good foot.
Okay.
Bye. Take care.